All right, so this is Photoshop's timeline interface here. If you go to Window, down here you'll see the checkbox for timeline. If I turn that off, you'll see the entire bottom of the screen there kind of disappears. But I don't lose anything. I haven't lost the work that I've done to create a video here in Photoshop. I don't lose any of that timeline stuff. If I go back to Window here and I click on Timeline again, you'll see it all comes back. So I can turn that on and off whenever I want to see this information or to turn it off. And I can bring this up and down depending on how much of this information here I want to see. The timeline interacts with my layers. So you can see here one of the reasons why I've tried to have you work with layers so much in Photoshop to this point is because I want to make sure that you understand how layers work so you can bring them into things like this. Another thing I want to mention about layers as they relate to the timeline is grouping them. You can group layers in Photoshop to apply effects to them as a whole. So if I come to my layers, and I'm going to do this now, and then I'm going to undo it. If I take these layers here, and I select them all, I can go to Layer, and then I can group them. You'll notice now they're in a group called Group 1. I can name that, same as I can name a layer, by clicking on it here, double-clicking and giving it a name. I can expand the group to see everything in it, and then I can collapse it. And then if I want to apply effects to this group, I can apply effects to all the layers in the group at once by applying the effects to the group as a whole. I double click on it here, and I'll see my layer style is here, and I can do my shadows, my stroke, color overlay, glows, drop shadows, bevel emboss. I can do all the cool stuff here to all the layers in the group at once by applying it to the group as a whole. And I've done that to a lot of these here. I'll show you. Let's go ahead and undo my grouping because I don't actually want to group these layers. They have individual things that they do throughout my timeline here. But you can see at the top here, each of these are from Video Group 7, Video Group 3, Video Group 4. Some of these have effects. For example, this one here has stroke and drop shadow applied to it. That's because this is all of my text that I have throughout the entire video is in this group. And then I wanted the same effects applied to all that text. And what happens is if I don't like the effects I've applied to that text, if I want to change the drop shadow so you can see it better, or make it bigger, or change how thick the stroke is. Stroke is a line around the outside of text that makes it so you can have like white text with like a black line around it, making it easier to see on all the backgrounds. If I want to change that, I change it to the group, and all of the text across the entire video changes at once. Makes it a little easier to change something and to apply effect across the whole video. Especially when you have a video like this where things are appearing and disappearing over time, applying things to layers is nice. So everything goes into layers here, and then what a video does in Photoshop is essentially it turns layers on and off over time. So you can see down here, everything on the left-hand side here of my video timeline relates to something over in my layers. So I got my video group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And that's all the stuff over here. So the only one that you're not seeing over here as a group is, I think, 5, right? Oh, 5's right here. Video group 5 is actually all of my recordings there. So all of my groups over here relate to a group over here. And then they have individual layers that are showing up as these little purple blobs here all throughout. Now, if I want to see what these are doing a little bit more easily, I can zoom in and out. Now, my screen is actually a little messed up today. Something happened with my little bar down here at the bottom. But if you can see it, there's a slider down here that I can slide back and forth. It actually zooms me in and out on a timeline. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see a little easier here. And then at the top, these actually are seconds. 1F, 2F, 3F, 4F. That's actually a number of seconds into the video. The video is about a minute long. Let me zoom out a little bit here. And I can find my individual layers. And as you said earlier, I can drag and drop in videos, whole clips. I can also bring in text. And if you know how to manipulate text in Photoshop, this actually makes it easy to manipulate the same text the same way as you would in Photoshop, but do it in a video. So let's go ahead and scroll through here and see what that looks like. So I've got a video here. This layer 1 is a video I brought in that I'd already made. And then I can kind of scroll through it. And then you can see I got more blobs here. So what are these blobs? Let's see what they are. As I come into them, I'm noticing that they are a logo, a white background, and then this one up here is this little animation here. This is actually a single logo that I animated in Photoshop. And this one here, let's see if we zoom in a little bit more on this part. There's a lot going on this portion of my timeline. So I got layer 3. I have these two portions of a logo and layer 2. The layer 2, if you look at it, if I select it here, it selects it over my layers panel. It's simply the white background. These two things here, the two halves of my logo, and that was actually made right here in Photoshop in the timeline. It was made in the video. And then layer 3 is actually my little dude. As I come in here, you'll see they appear at different times. The layer 2, my white background, is actually has a fade in. You see it's kind of fading white. While these two here have an animation. And then the little guy has a fade in, and he also animates back and forth. All that was done right here in Photoshop. I didn't have to do it in an outside program with Animation Studio or something like that and then bring it in like I would have to with Premiere. Everything was done right here in Photoshop. How do I do that? Let's see. With layer 2, the white background, this is actually a fade transition. All of my transitions are found right here. If I click on this, I have fade, crossfade, fade with black, fade with white, fade with color. I can drag and drop these over top of my sections here. So a fade is the thing just kind of fades in. Yes. Yeah, I can do that. So I believe this one here is actually a fade because if I select this one here, I think that one also is listed as fade. A fade is the thing just kind of fades in. Crossfade, I'm going to do that one next here, is the two things fade in and out at the same time. So the one that's already there fades out while the other one fades in. So it's a subtle difference. So if I select this as a crossfade, let's see what that looks like here. It's not as noticeable here because I'm fading into a white background. So you're not really noticing it as much. But if I just come over here and scroll to this, do you notice this one here has a different symbol than this does? Yeah. These are all crossfades between each of my different sections of video. So if I click on this and come over, you'll notice as I go from that video to this video, do you see how you can see both videos for a second? And then the one kind of goes away and the other one comes over it. That's a crossfade transition. Now, what's that? Why don't I play the video? You've seen the video 24 times. You know what it looks like. If I wanted to, I could do that. Right here are my play controls. So at any point, I can play the video to see what it looks like. And then I can also drag back and forth on this to see it over time, what it looks like. If I want to test out my transition and see what it looks like, I can do it. I can also come down here, select the transition. I can drag it to make that transition longer. If I want a longer crossfade, if I want those two videos to exist simultaneously for a little longer, I can just change that crossfade. If I think it's too long and I want it a little shorter, bring it down here. And now that crossfade happens a little quicker. See? Can I undo? I can't. No, it doesn't work right now. So I'm going to have to come back here and change it. You notice everything I can click on in here has that same ability to be changed by dragging the edges. So once I selected my fade here, I can go to the edge of it. And I get that little bracket. You see, I can click and drag it. All of my clips do the same thing. If I select the clip and go to the edge of it, I can grab it and drag it to make it exist for a different period of time, overlap other clips for different periods of time, and things like that. So I create layers. They come up over here, and I can bring different components in and out to these tracks and have them overlay. Over on the right-hand side here, I have this plus button. If I click the plus button, that is the Add Media button. I can add things directly to that track from outside of Photoshop if they don't already exist in there by coming in here and adding media. They can be pictures, it can be video clips, anything you would bring into the timeline I can bring in directly by clicking on that little plus button there. If I want to do it from within Photoshop, I can use the new layer button and I can drag it right onto a video group. And I can do a new layer with anything I can have on a new layer in Photoshop. It could be a picture, it could be text, it can be a color, whatever I want to do with it. Let's zoom out a little bit here. All right. That's the basics of how the timeline functions. Everything else you see on here is just layers with things on them. So like this layer here is the text. Just what if your idea is text right here? Is on this layer. And you see I can decide if it's on or off. And it's on top of this layer here, which is my video clip. So at this point in the video, the only things that exist are this video clip and this text. And you notice this text kind of overlaps two video clips. As I slide my slider, you'll see a text exists with two different video clips because it's on a different track here than this one is. I can also add sound. Down at the bottom here, I've included an audio track, and I've tossed an audio track in there, and I have all the different I have all the different tools I could do with an audio track. I can right click on this and I have a fade in, fade out. I have a volume. I have all the different possibilities I could have with an audio track right here. I can have multiple audio tracks if I want to. And I could have them at different points. So if I scroll to the end of my audio track here, you'll notice I have the same controls here. I can grab the end of it and drag that around if I want to and make that last for different periods of time and have multiple different audio tracks. And audio track doesn't just have to be music. In this video, it's the background music. But an audio track can be sound effects. It can be voiceover. It can be anything you'd want an audio track to be. So you could have 10, 15, 20 different audio tracks doing different things if you wanted to. You're making a movie. It could be your sound effects, your voiceover, your background music. Anything you'd want to do for audio tracks, you can do. You can place them anywhere you want, the same way you can with your video clips at the top here, and your layers, your backgrounds, your text. All that stuff has the same controls. You just click, you drag things around, drag that one around, see, I can move it wherever I want it to go. I can move things to new tracks. Can I undo that? Good, I can undo that. I can drag the ends around. And it's all the same basic controls for moving things within your timeline. Let's go ahead and take a look here at a brand new timeline. I have a plain layer. I have nothing on it. And I have no timeline yet. Let's go ahead and create a video timeline and see what we're given to start with from a clean, plain, basic timeline. We're given a layer that exists over the course of the whole timeline. And let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit down here. It exists for 5 seconds. No, is that 5 seconds or 5 minutes? 5 seconds. I hit play, it plays, and goes to the end and loops. And nothing's on it. So let's go ahead and add something to my layer here. Let's go ahead and add a picture to it. So I'm going to go ahead and File, Place Embedded. My picture's here. And let's put an airplane on there, shall we? I like this one. Place that embedded, and I'll make it fill the whole thing. So we're going to do what you guys have to do for your project. Put an airplane picture in, boom, I have a picture. All right, let's go ahead and put a new layer on, just like you guys would. New layer. You notice as soon as I hit the new layer button, what happened on the video timeline? Did we see that? Let's undo that.
Do it again.
Let's watch it again. You guys watch this here. I'm gonna hit the new layer button down here at the bottom, where the new layer button has always been, and watch what happens on the timeline when I hit the new layer button. What did it do?
Add it on. Or another video.
It added another track to the timeline. The tracks in the timeline are one-to-one with the layers in my layers panel. Let me do that again. Boom. Another layer. Now, watch this. This timeline is exactly one-to-one with what's going on in my layers panel. So if I take these two layers here and I select both of them, and I go to layer and I group my layers, watch what happens to my timeline. My timeline now shows the group the same as this is grouped. So when I grouped things over here, if you were wondering why all these showed video group and then there's a bunch of video groups over here, I did that manually. I did that. I set that up because I wanted to control and organize things. Are you surprised that Mr. King wanted to control and organize things? No, I wouldn't think so. I like to control and organize things. I wanted it organized. I like them organized. There's a billion layers in here. I wanted them organized so I could know where they were. Same thing over here. As soon as I group them, they're both there, but they're organized here under group 1. And I have power and control over them now here. Let's undo that, because we don't need to do that right now. All right, so we now have layer 1 here. Let's go ahead and set some things up in here first. I want my airplane picture first. So let's go ahead and drag that over here and have it exist for 2 seconds. And then let's do layer 1, and we're going to drag it this way and have that exist from 2 seconds onward. And I'm going to drag my head of my timeline over, and watch what happens. Bloop. Now it's a second one. I'm going to select layer 1 on my timeline. Once I'm working with the timeline, I'm a little OCD. Again, are we surprised? And I like to control my layers from the timeline when I'm working with the timeline. Notice, if I select layer 1 here, it selects it over there on my layers panel. If I select this one, it selects it over there. So I prefer to control it from here so I know what I'm doing. I'll pick layer 1 here, and I'm going to put a picture in here. File, place embedded, and let's choose Mr. King's logo from his. Now let's go ahead and do. Let's do this airplane. This is Mr. King's airplane from when he worked in the Air Force. Isn't it pretty? And then let's go ahead and stick Mr. King's logo from when he was in the Air Force on top of it. No, ma'am. I'm not. I didn't take pictures of it. All right, there we go. Mr. King's logo is on top of it. Same layer. Actually, they're not on the same layer for some reason. Let's go ahead and group them, shall we? We'll go layer, group layers, and now I want both of those two layers to exist at the same time. So if I grab the group, what happens to the two layers in the group? You see that? They're moving together. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring them here to the end, and I'm going to grab this one here and butt it up to those. And you see it kind of snaps in place. That's kind of nice. It snaps in place to the end. And then I'm going to do a fade transition between them. Chloe, pick a fade for me. Which one do you like? Fade with color. Okay. Let's go ahead and down here. And see, I put it over one of my videos, or one of my clips here. Let's do it over this one and that one. And I'm going to select it. What color am I doing? Pick a color to fade with. Something sunsetty. Pink. Is that good? All right, pink. We got pink. All right, so now still doing here. I know what I did wrong. I had to pick the color first. Now it's pink. Now if I drag it down, now we should fade with pink. You see how it goes to pink and then fades in? All right. And now, what's the last piece of the puzzle here I need for your assignment? I'm going to overlay that between my two pictures. You're not required to, but I'm going to. So I'm going to make another new layer. See, there it is. Layer 1, right here. I don't want it within my group, even though it made it there. So I'm actually going to drag it above my group. There we go. I have a little more control over it here. I'm going to put some text in there. And make it a little smaller so I can actually see it. Mr. King has to spell. how to make videos in Photoshop. Yay. It's too big, so hang on. Let's go ahead and do a 60 point here. That's good. I'm going to center it. I'm going to grab it up here. Now, you can't see it very well, can you? So why don't I add some layer styles to it so I can show you how to let your text be seen on different backgrounds. That's useful. You've probably seen this before, but let's show you again. If I double click on this layer, double click. It's being difficult. Click on it once, double click. All right. If you can't get it to work with double click, which sometimes is a pain, you can also right click and go to blending options. The same thing. And now I'm going to add both a drop shadow and a stroke to it. So let's click on stroke. And you see that little black line it puts around it? Makes it easier to read. I'm going to make a 3-point, a little bit bigger size here. And you can pick outside or inside. See the difference? Inside always looks a little gross to me. So I'm going to go outside and 100% opacity, color, and I'm going to give it a drop shadow too. And I don't want it to be quite that far away, so I'm going to go ahead. You see the distance makes it farther away. I'm going to bring it a little closer, make an 8. I want it to go on an angle. Put a 45-degree angle in. And okay. See, it makes it easier to see, right? Okay. All you have to do. It's really all you have to do. Now, did anybody notice what's wrong with my text? Well, it looks weird, doesn't it? Can I explain to you why? I have a setting set on mine to make it work a little better. Notice over here, it says I got a lot of stuff on it, right? And when I try to play it, it's going to be a little janky. See? A little janky. Because there's a lot of stuff going on. It takes a lot of memory in the computer to play something like this. I have a setting set over here. You see resolution at 25%. Okay. This is actually really high res video, and I cranked the resolution down. If I put this one at 100, you want to see what happens? It'll blow my computer up. I mean, it won't blow the computer up, but it'll not run well. Watch this. See, it's just see, it's really janky. So this is a little trick for you guys. This little settings wheel here, if it's not running well, setting this down to 50 or 25% will make it run better. But because this video is a lower res video even than the one I had before, it automatically will make things look worse while you play the video, just to make it so that it can run better. If I switch this back to 100 and I play, see, it's fine. So there we go. That's all you have to do, guys, for your project for Tuesday. After that, way more. But this is all you have to do for Tuesday. 2 photos, transition, text, boom, you're done. Questions? All right. Great, guys. Thank you for so much.